All right. So, yeah, there was a line of storms that came through last night. And like they come out of nowhere because it was around, I don't know, maybe it was in the afternoon and they were already warning of storms coming up and I didn't see anything on the Doppler, but I did the whole future Doppler thing and I saw, oh shit, stuff was appearing right over like in Michigan. And I'm sure it came from like Canada going over the waters, whatever, Lake Michigan or Lake Erie. And those lines of storms were just making their way over. And when I look at the future, again, the future Doppler of where storms are going to end up, it starts to break up in near my town. I mean, I'm still kind of sort of in the yellow and the red, but when you look at how the red and the yellow it was more scattered to the red and yellow and green in my area, and it was more to the right and left that it was all really red and yellow. And you know, I'm following these groups that are warning people of these tornadoes, and you hear people saying, "Oh, places north of me are going off as far as the tornadoes, the tornado warnings." And not so much tornadoes, but tornado warnings. I don't know if any touched down, but the tornado warnings were like the the bell or whatever you call it was going off. The bell, the horn, the PA system, whatever they're called. But I looked through my Ring camera and I was looking when it started coming in because I could hear the wind starting to pick up and I'm like, oh shit, you know, something's gonna come out of the sky and just take me out, you know. But no, I mean, it was just the wind and the rain and that's about it. And then it was a few thunder bumpers and that's about it. But I was prepared to deal with total catastrophic, because it's not to say it won't happen here. I will never assume it's not going to happen to me. I will never assume that we won't get a power outage. We will eventually. It hasn't happened. I will not assume that we will not get hit. We will get hit at some point, or we won't. I don't know, but I will assume we will, because I can't get too comfortable. You can't get comfortable in this world. You cannot get so comfortable in this world. And so I always future think. When I hear that something's going to happen, I have my backpack ready with a few things in it, and I have my computer, and that's about it. My phone and my keys. And I'm like, hey, see you later, everything. You know, you may be gone in a matter of minutes. So I always future think. And the whole J world, what I am promoting as far as the J world, not so much the J gist, but the J world, the evolution, and listening to indicators and listening to warnings is all about future thinking. And so I think about like how old I am. I'm 49. I'm 49 years old. There are 16-year-olds that are going to be maybe 49 years old at some point. And we know that 2050 is when the fertility rates are going to be going down. You're not going to be able to put your immortality in your child come 2045, 2050. That's like 27 years or so from now. But like people are like, oh, that's so far away. Not necessarily. You may not even see that time. Some 16-year-olds today may not even see 2045. May not even live to be your age, Gen X and Millennial. Okay? And so when you break it down to that simplicity of just adding 27 years to your 16-year-old, and they're going to be like maybe 44, 43 or something like that, if they even get to see that, assuming they're not withering away from some predisposed issues, or they just get taken out, die suddenly 10 years before we even reach 2050. And I think about that for a lot of people. And I think about a lot of things for a lot of people and for myself, because what will my world be like when it's 2050? And right now I'm 49, you know, so I'm 50 plus then 27 years, 70. Fuck. Yeah. Okay. So hey, look, my hair is getting a little bit thinner, but that's okay. It's not going majorly gray. I mean, to see a few wispies and stuff. But it is getting a little bit thinner. My face, I have still have the collagen. What was my reaction to this storm, to these impending storms, and then the storm that just breaks up? Not breaks up, but outbreak of storms. Before, it was like feeling the headaches or the anxiety, the heart beating really quickly, so much stuff. No, now what I get, I'm getting these hives. That's it. I got hives yesterday. I had to take a nap, woke up, and that's when I started posting stuff. And then it's the hives. It's literally the hives. Okay? And so I'll get them like on my neck, I'll get them on my back, on my butt, on my thighs. I even have a picture of them on my thigh when I was scratching the other day. But that's pretty much it. I'm not even too hungry when you think about it. I'm not super starving. What did I have to eat yesterday? I had spaghetti. Ate a shit ton of spaghetti. And that was before I took a nap. And I woke up, I didn't even have any extra acid. Like, I didn't have to go and eat a salad. Not that I really had to, but sometimes I just do that. But I didn't even feel like I needed to eat a salad. I mean, I'm still going to incorporate, of course, cabbage daily along with my acids, which is all the fatty acid and amino acid. But I didn't really need to do that. And I was pretty much fine. And so then I'm looking at my Facebook, looking at like people I used to know from a long time ago, way back when I was elementary school. And I see they have their children and their fancy life, and everything's so insulated. It's so Silicon Valley, and part of me feels a pull of like, oh God, what would it be like to be normal? What would it be like to be normal? Then I'm thinking like, that's the reason why I do this stuff. No, I'm not going to be liked. No, people are going to think I'm crazy, and I'm not going to be popular. And that was never, ever in my cards, ever, really. And I just think about how old their kids are. And the people are my age, and their kids are like 16, 12, 15. And I'm thinking like, do they even think about what their kids are going to have to deal with in 27 years? Or in even 20 years, or even 10 years. Of course, you don't know people's health issues because it's all HIPAA, and not everybody's going to advertise their health issues. Or people are managing disease. What will it be like for their children when they are in an accelerated environment, and their disease and their predisposed issues and their genetic inheritable traits of disease rears their ugly head way before they even reach the age that we are? Do parents of millennials and Gen X even think about that? Do they even want to think about that? Do they even care? And so future thinking. Imagine your 16-year-old at your age suffering or not even existing. Think about that, Gen X and millennials. Will your kids be lucky enough to see the age you are right now? And if they are lucky enough, are they going to be suffering astronomically from predisposed issues? Future thinking was never really built into the population unless it was future thinking of your academic professors who are telling you where the world's going to go. Oh, we're going to do now team building. Everything's about globalism and team building and a new government and all this other stuff. But no one really talks about genetically, your genetic line, where it's going to fucking end up. But they're telling you at 2045, there's going to be major mass infertility. Men are not going to be viable. Men are right now suffering from neurological issues, disfiguring themselves so they don't have to develop a child, so they don't produce sperm, that they're still sexual. And they're going to suffer from dementia from that type of altering of their hormones, their reproductive system. Men are dealing with right now neurological issues. Not even just from that, but from other things because of their genes that aren't as evolutionary as women's genes are. So men are going to be phased out until they learn how to freaking evolve, assuming they're allowed to. Okay? If you have a son and even a daughter, wouldn't you want to give them the best future possible? Not the best present possible, because the best present possible means that there's no fucking future. I mean, people say the future is now, not necessarily, because if you already see where you're going, mom and dad, and you could be Gen X, millennial, or even baby boomer, we already know, just from looking at you, mom and dad, what your child and grandchild will be dealing with sooner, if not later. That's why I kind of understand now why my mom really made my life miserable when I was a child and a teen, because she knew if I didn't get misery now, I would get misery later, and then misery later, I wouldn't survive the misery later. I get it now. I mean, it took me a while. It took me a few years to figure out what the strategy was. But if you're a mom and you have a son and you've seen that men are going to be phased out by 2045, 2050, and he has your predisposed issues, as well as the baby daddy or the husband or the father's predisposed issues, what kind of future does your son have? And he has to go and battle the succubus out there, the hot women who can't wait to get their claws in your son. What kind of future does he have for himself? And again, if you have a daughter, what kind of future does your daughter have? When her only roles are going to be government drone, potentially wife material, maybe. So she's a slave for the government and a slave to a man, or a hot girl selling sex on the internet and selling antibiotics. What kind of future is that for your child? I mean, I understand government drone. If that's the only jobs available is to be a government employee, fine. But then she will have the pull to be a wife, to have a family. And you know what kind of suffering that's with that. I was watching last night Steel Magnolias Before the Storm. And that was made in the 80s. And, you have Julia Roberts and that other chick. I forget her name. That's okay. Sally Field and Daryl Hannah. And these are all Southern women, traditional Southern women. And we know that Julia Roberts, her Shelby, was suffering from some kind of condition and was recommended not to have a child. But she had that pull. She had that desire because her husband, who's a traditionalist, a lawyer in the South, wanted to have a family. And so what did she end up being? The sacrificial lamb. She couldn't survive having that child. The child came out relatively okay, I guess. But she died before her child even hit its 5th birthday. So what kind of future for these girls who have predisposed issues, who are so worn out, her genes are so worn out from so many compound predispositions, and then not only she becomes a government drone, but she also then has a desire to get married and have a bunch of children. What kind of future is for that girl? Moms, dads. And so these movies are telling you, these movies are cluing you in on what the future is for your children, your sons, your daughters, your binaries, non-binaries, whatever you want to call the person. But there are specific hormones, testosterone and estrogen, sexual reproductive hormones, that do come into play that give us that label of male, female, and then potentially some kind of hybridization where it's almost equal and you can't tell the difference. I even watched on that show Good Girls, the son, or it was a daughter, Sadie, who was starting to transition from being a girl to a boy. And you can see the transition through that whole show, Good Girls. It's quite interesting what hormones and intention can develop as far as the outcome. And maybe we were all supposed to be asexual a long time ago. And then the system developed extreme sexuality on each end. And then you see what that extreme sexuality is, the alpha males and the hot chicks. See, my husband's an alpha male and he's traditionalist. He's not too much of an asshole. He can be an asshole. But a lot of alpha males out there tend to be somewhat prickish, arrogant, asshole-ish. That comes with being an alpha male. It's kind of attractive on some level, but then there's other things you have to deal with an alpha male. And if you are a weak woman, that alpha male will cannibalize the shit out of you. And so it takes a strong woman to have almost everything, but still play a part, because there is expectations in all relationships, especially when you are marrying a traditionalist. But you can temper those expectations and find a way to find your autonomy and still play the part. Not to say that you're faking it. No, there's no faking it. But you temper down the expectations. But when you have women that are bred to be something like OnlyFans, women bred to not really use her mind, women bred to only use her looks and to look for Prince Charming, she will compromise herself over and over again, and even potentially develop a bunch of kids that she will be stuck with and enslaved by. As the man says, I have no real connection to this, and maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't want to feel trapped. So, yeah. It's pretty grim, the future for these males and females, these young males and females. And even if you don't raise your kids in wanting to get married to someone or something, whether it's a male or female or binary, non-binary, and they are very academic, then they have to fight their predisposed issues. They have to fight whatever it is that they inherited from you. So they're not out of the woods because they don't look for a relationship or fall into the usual shit that goes on out there in the college systems, the parties and the drugs and the alcohols. Now they have to fight your genetics, mom and dad. So, what kind of future is for these children when the parents don't even think about what their kids are going to have to deal with at your age, if they even survive getting to your age? And so I had to think about what's up with these men. And it's so interesting. The men, the boys and the girls are treated very differently in families. Because the boys are supposed to be toughened up and alpha male and more masculine than not. And if they're not, and they're a mama's boy, then the alpha father, who could be an asshole, will then go and try to toughen up their kid and turn him into an asshole, turn him into an alpha male, turn him into a bully. And so what are the choices for the men out there? They're a mama's boy. And when he gets into a relationship, that mother, grandmother, whatever, is the matriarch, and she has her hooks into that situation, and there's no room for anything except for what she wants. Or he becomes an alpha male, treats his mom like shit, and also is a bully to everyone out there, and a bully to his potential wife. So, what's the choices for these males when you have that type of mother who doesn't ever put boundaries? And if she does put boundaries and he resists, then the father comes in and maybe he lays down the law on some level. Maybe makes him a bit more tougher and then goes overboard. Or he's a mama's boy, so protective, which women like. Oh yeah, you know how the type of man that you need to be with is a man that loves his mother. Oh yeah, that's okay. I can see that. Because then if he loves his mother and respects his mother, then he potentially could respect you. But on the other hand of it, she also has her own ideas of how to raise children. She has her own idea how to do stuff. And so if he's that close to his mother, then his wife has no fucking say. And so he's basically married to his mother, and the wife is just a broad mare. She's just producing children. And that's what you see in the royal family. Prince Charles is so tied in with his mother, and Princess Diana, she had no fucking say, and he's also stepping out on her. So what kind of future for these wives out there? So I'm saying, there's a no-win situation with how we have developed our boys and our girls with the extreme sexuality and extreme gender roles. Men never had to evolve. That's why, before I get into that, that's why there's only a few men in the J world that potentially can get this. That's why the J world has mostly women. There's men observing me, yes. Just probably as entertainment. They're like, oh, look, another freaking feminist. She's a man-hater. Well, I can only imagine what some of these alpha males out there watching my information think of me. But, yeah. Why men are not really taken to this information? Because men never really had to evolve. Because they were given their position. They were given the power. They were given the wealth. Assuming their body, mind, and spirit could handle the stress of blue-collar and white-collar work. And if his mother was around and she doted on him, and you see out there mothers with sons, how much she dotes on him. He does no wrong, she bails him out. And that's what most mothers who are so tied in with their sons do with their sons. Their daughters, they have a hard time with their daughters, but it's the sons they lavish so much love and adoration and wealth and accumulation and all that stuff. Her sons are everything to her. And that's what happens even in the Chinese culture. The daughters are thrown out when you think about it. And that's why they're having an issue with mostly men and not enough women, because the sons were revered, because the sons stayed home and took care of the parents while the daughter was pimped out to another family to be a slave. And that's in the Chinese culture with that whole one-child policy. They kind of screwed their whole dynamics as far as keeping their culture going when there's mostly men out there and hardly any women, because the women were not revered at all. It was the men that were revered. And so the mothers will destroy her sons because she will keep him traditional. She won't let him go outside the lines. Her politics, her religion, and her science won't let her. She will cater to her son, and he will feel entitled. And you know, many mothers are like that. They worship their sons, and their sons don't survive, or they get bitten by the sex demon, the succubus, right? And they're gone. And they have to raise a family and are a slave to everything, and then they fall apart. And they feel depressed because they are trapped. Can you imagine what it's like to be a man who had circumcision? So he's hypersexual, screws everything out there, develops a bunch of kids because he wasn't really told to really, stop his sexuality. He was told to go just have sex with everything he wants. So a few kids come out of that, the girls come out, and then they slap child support and everything else. And now he's trapped. Now he has to work and pay for all of that. And he was already sexualized and radicalized sexually as a young boy. He had no fucking chance. That's how the system has trapped men into being the good father and staying with the family and paying for everything. Or he wants to not feel trapped and get out, but he can't, because then he has a few kids that the system is going to force him into paying child support for. That's how these men have been manipulated into slavery. And the women. That's how you've been used by your fucking government. And when men are trapped, they leave or they do drugs and alcohol. Because can you imagine when everyone's against you, everyone's like, oh, you're not a good dad, you're a deadbeat dad. And you don't want to raise these kids because the mother, you never really had a relationship, you never had a connection with her or anything, and with her anyways, and she wasn't wife material, I guess. And then the system is now going to then put you in jail if you don't pay the child support. That's how fucked up the system is. That's how fucked up. That's how fucked these mothers are doing to their daughters and sons, setting them up to fail. If they don't release those demons, what's in their fucking future? Child support or being trapped into a relationship that they're going to die in because they won't have a chance to get their life back because they're working 90 hours a week to support that family. Oh, I feel bad for the men and women out there stuck in those traditional roles. I feel bad for them when their mothers and fathers trap them into those traditional lifestyles. And so I said it's the women who have the power to destroy or set free without rest and peace. It's the mothers. Now observe the men out there. Now observe their arrogance. Their arrogance was developed by the mother because she catered to his every need. He never did any wrong, and so his arrogance bleeds over into the sons and daughters. That's what we're trying to breed out of the population. The arrogance, the entitlement, the intolerance. How many men will hate me for saying this? Again, that's my point. I am already expecting women not to like me for saying these things, because for centuries you've been given power and told you did no wrong, and so in turn you did the same thing to your kids. Okay? Now the system is holding you accountable. You get to see what you developed in your family. You get to watch how intolerant your child is to the environment as well as to the diversity. You were given that power to destroy. And some people are going to learn this later on, late in life. I mean, if you already have a kid that's like, 25, 30, the change already left the station. It's not your fault. That was what you were taught, and your parents taught you, and the parents' taught you. Now we have a chance to redirect. There are people that have children that are under 18, that are under 5, that have a chance to redirect the intentions. Not force your kids into those traditional roles where the only end result is going to be suffering. Suffering from enslavement, sex enslavement, job enslavement, family enslavement. So that's why I'm not impressed with your grandchildren and children. Because what are you developing? What are you instilling into your child? What are you instilling into that family unit? Anybody can make a baby who has the parts and are relatively fertile. Very rarely does somebody raise a child who can survive the conditions and are tolerant of the world they live in. And I mean that spiritually, and I mean that in body, mind, and spirit. And so when you have kids that are diagnosed with all these different situations, neurological issues to things that need to be operated on, yeah. You already had deficiencies, mother. You never really thought about your deficiencies were going to carry through into that child and then be compounded by all the treatments. And now you get to watch and suffer what you developed, and you didn't know it because the system was never going to tell you, because the system wasn't meant to tell you what's going to happen when you treat something. And it's all about now, but no one looks at 20 years from now what those treatments have done to your child, what's done to you, and then what kind of anomalies you developed in your genetic line from all those treatments that you did. The system doesn't care. They're going to leave it up to you to deal with your ramifications of your choices. What are you forcing the world to tolerate and deal with? What kind of archaic traditions are you forcing the world to deal with in your child and family? So when you have a girl that's like 20, having a baby right now. Really? Really? Is that all she's good for, is to have a fucking baby? Is that it? Is that the respect? Is that what you see in your daughter, is to be a baby maker? Isn't she more than just her fucking body, her tits, her everything else? Isn't she more than just being a mother? Nope, these families develop baby makers in their family because no one puts any emphasis on intelligence or intellect. That's the traditional 1950s world that turned into now areas of where you have 16-year-olds having children. 16-year-olds, 20-year-olds having children. And if not having children, then they're a piece for everybody. They're a piece for the men that are in their 50s. Because look at these men in their 50s, googly-eyed over these 25-year-olds are all hair and body, and that's it. Hair and skinny body. And lips. That's the lack of respect for females in families right now. So then you look at where the system is going. Now you look at, I posted that picture, or that post from G Flip. I think she's a lesbian. Yeah, she's a lesbian. She's out of Australia. And her wife, who she just recently got married to, is a hot chick. And that hot chick, I saw her on, what is it? Is it Orange County Real Estate? It's on Netflix, but these chicks that work for Oppenheimer real estate agency out there in LA, and all the chicks that work there are all fucking hot. They are Barbie hot. They're extreme sexuality, and that's what these agencies expect, because that's who the clients want, are the Barbie hot sales agents selling this kind of lifestyle. You have this big 10,000, 20,000 square foot house. You probably have a slew of women or a hot wife. Well, you want to have a hot real estate agent, right? And so she was dating Oppenheimer, which is one of the brothers, the twins. It didn't work out. He just used her. She's like, okay, well, I guess that's not going to work out. I'm not going to have a baby with this guy. That's what she was hoping for, was to have a baby with Mr. Oppenheimer. So then what does she do? She goes and marries a chick. And she's tooling around and having a party. That's really now where the world's going, is you can be a hot chick and be a piece for some more masculine female out there who is a performer, or be somebody else's slave to some CEO or executive or someone that can afford to keep up with your Botox and your makeup and your clothing. Wow. Wow. And so that's what I'm saying. If you have daughters now, maybe it's time to redirect. But if you're so traditional, if you're a traditional male that was catered to by your mother, and your father's like, yeah, stay traditional, what kind of future? Well, we already know what the future is for these girls. OnlyFans, government drone with potential wifery, and maybe having a baby and suffering from all of that, because there are predisposed issues in every family. And people treat those predisposed issues and they compound the anomalies. They compound the diseases and make them more exotic. And so that's why it is about the mother. It really is. And there's a reason why my mother adopted daughters or adopted females. Because females have the ability to evolve. Females can fucking change the world. So my mother was pretty strategic adopting girls. My sister and I. She didn't adopt boys for a reason. She adopted girls. And so women are going to make or break the fucking world. Women are going to make or break their family. Women are going to make or break themselves. If women do not fight for their own life, they will fight to take down all life. And look, watch, you see me, friendly, giving, I don't say people giving people advice, but friendly giving, our perspective. And there's women on my Facebook who do sell supplements, who do sell the herbal extracts. And they're nice to me. No one's ever mean to me because we're trying to be respectful. But they're the complete opposite of me. They might be dabbling in this world, but maybe this is not their world. But they're dabbling in it because they see there's something in it. But they're still selling antibiotics. They're still fighting to take down not only their life and justifying it, but they're fighting to take down the life around them. But see, the reason why they do that, the reason why these women do that, and you could tell them it's all antibiotic, but they're like, no, it's FDA. Well, everything's FDA approved, of course. Not everything, but what they're selling is FDA approved. But their justification is they think that they are helping people take away the pain. Their justification is, well, if it's FDA approved and it's not deadly, then this could potentially enhance their life. What? This would potentially balance out their hormones, so they say. You know what kind of acids that are stuck in people's bodies, right? We all know when we did the J juice, how much acid was stuck in our body when our acids were burning when we were doing those first waterfalls. Our buttholes were burning. We had to use coconut oil on our sphincter because it was burning, because of how much acid our body was able to finally release. The excessive acids that were causing us torture and pain and disease. So if you're selling supplements on top of people's acids that are already stuck in their body, you're just compounding the issue. I don't care how you want to justify it. It's easy to justify, oh yeah, I'm helping the world. I'm relieving your pain. I'm taking away your pain. I'm balancing your hormones. You have no idea what the fuck you're doing. So you're just compounding people's issues with all your supplements and herbs and extracts and detoxes. But again, you were bitten by the marketing game of misleading and mischaracterizing what you're doing. No different than the definition of histamine. The medical system when the medical system says that your immune system mistakenly reacts to something in the body and thinks it's deadly. Mistakenly? Are you fucking kidding me? When you're coughing and sneezing and blowing your nose, that's not a fucking mistake. But that's the word. One word can change all the perception of what goes on in the body as far as histamine reactions and whatever else you're feeling from what you're taking or not taking. But remember, it's the almighty fucking dollar is what runs the people who run in the circles of the health and wellness. It's the almighty dollar. It's not about saving people's lives, because they already justify people should die someday. They've already said, hey, you're supposed to die. It's probably better over there if you die. So here, let me help you get there faster. That's part of the depopulation agenda. I'm not mad at them because they already have given up. I mean, I get annoyed and irritated, but I'm not mad at them. Because when people give up, they project their intolerance and project their future onto others. And if others are that weak to buy into giving up, buy into the latest fucking remedy, then they're not meant to deal with, obviously, I mean, it's obvious, they're not meant for the next world. They're meant to pass away in the system as humanely as possible. But what gets to me is these supplements and herbalist salesmen and all that, these alpha males and extreme hot females are claiming that they're helping people, saving their lives. What the fuck do you mean helping people? No one has ever said, I want to die today. No one has ever said, I want to die tomorrow. No one has ever said, I want to die next year. Have you ever heard anyone out there on Facebook say, I want to die? I want to die today. I want to die tomorrow. I want to die next week. I want to die 10 years from now. Have you seen anyone? When you ask somebody, do you want to die? They'd be like, no, I don't want to die. Oh my God, I don't want to die. So then what the fuck are you selling? You're selling a perception of hope that they won't die today, that your herb and extract and detox is going to give them a longer life when you can't fucking guarantee that. That's the health and wellness world. Because there's nobody in your client list that will ever say they want to fucking die today. Remember, the future is now, right? The whole percent, the future is now. So if you're selling antibiotics, the future is now. You're destroying them with your antibiotics or supplements, compounding the issues they already have in their body where they wouldn't be going to begin with in the first place. And so if women do not fight for their own life, they will fight to take down all life around them. They will take down their family. They will take down their sons, take down their daughters, take down their husbands, take down their wives, take down everyone around them who is buying all their bullshit. And then they get the money and they'll have it temporarily and they'll pay taxes to the government. Because you have to pay taxes on all of those herbs and extracts and supplements. Because when it's not through the cash anymore and everything is through Venmo, Cash App, or sending you a check, it's all going to be tracked and you will have to pay taxes on your death culture. Because when they do eradicate the cash, or then people barter, okay, I have this, so I'll give you my concoction of death right here, and here, you want to give me that bicycle, and we'll call it even. Oh yeah, they'll be bartering. If you don't want the government to see what you're doing, then you'll barter. You'll make your little concoctions from your urban garden, right? Your herb garden, and you'll make your concoctions of aggressive elements, and you'll sell it to your friends, but you'll say, hey, I got this, and then here, come to my house, but you have to have a lot of shit to go and barter with if you don't want the government to. But that's a lot of work. People want cold hard cash. They don't want a fucking bike. But they'll then sell the things. So then they don't make their own concoctions in their garden or in their kitchen from their garden. They'll go and buy the FDA approved supplements and detoxes. The protocols that are FDA approved for specific things. And so they destroy their friends and family through FDA approved protocols. So if women do not fight for their own life, they will fight to take down all life around them. When I literally am up against that, I leave the war. I don't go and try to convert them. That's war when you go and try to convert someone. I can speak about it and observe and report on it, but I'm not trying to convert anybody. I don't go and confront anyone. You all know where I stand. I know where you stand. You choose to listen to me, fine. If you think that my words are fighting words, then stop listening to me. Block and delete me. And so I leave the war. I'll drop pamphlets. So basically what I'm doing right now is like dropping a pamphlet, right? But I'll not spend the time fighting to save you. I've already saved myself. But you and everyone else around you deserve another choice in the matter. That's my duty to men and women. That's the role the system forced you into, is to be in a purveyor of life, like a baby mama, or a death angel. But now that you have a third choice, you don't have to be either of those. Oh my God, then what does that mean? Oh, you save your own self. You're not trying to be a savior to anyone. You're not trying to give life to somebody else to go and do experiments on, or give life to somebody else to use as a sex toy and a plaything and a slave. That's what these women have been pigeonholed into in the old world. Arranged marriages, and then forced into that in-laws home to go and serve everybody. That's the old traditional lifestyle. And then even today, women are forced to go, well, not forced, but they feel like they're forced to go and get married. And then the grandmother, in-law, or her own mother is like, oh, you got to have a baby now. You got to have a baby now. Give me a grandchild. So these women are forced into slavery. Of course, sex slavery, and then forced into having a baby and taking care of them and having baby upon baby upon baby. She's basically a baby machine. And so when women, WOMBEN, are taking antibiotics and surgeries, pills, powders, and supplements, they are teaching the men and the women and their children how to disrespect their body, mind, and spirit, and also disrespect their own family. Yeah. See, when you respect yourself, you wouldn't do damage to yourself. You wouldn't take the drugs. You wouldn't do all the alcohol. You wouldn't do any of the supplements or detoxes or pills. You wouldn't even get surgery. You wouldn't cut into yourself and butcher yourself and disfigure yourself. You realize that? That's lack of respect for your body, your mind, and your spirit when you are purposely doing harm to yourself through FDA-approved protocols. Oh, I don't look at it that way. It's because I don't care how you fucking justify it, how you spin it. You're disrespecting your body, your mind, and your spirit. And how many women have taught each other to disrespect each other? Oh yeah, that's why there's bullies out there, because that's the most blatant disrespect. But then the indirect, subtle disrespect is recommending someone take something to stop their body from evolving and releasing. Recommending remedies, selling them. You're obviously disrespecting your client list when you're selling them shit that you know is not going to do anything that you claim it's going to do. Prolong your life and give you peace. There's no way you can fucking guarantee that. And maybe they need to release those demons, and what you're doing is stopping them from releasing the demons that they hold inside. So you're disrespecting your client list. You're disrespecting your friends and your family and yourself. So they're teaching the men and women and their children how to disrespect their body, mind, and spirit, and to also disrespect their own family. And women are teaching the world how to disrespect her body, mind, and spirit and family. And she is teaching the world she wants to be treated by her example. She is teaching disrespect to her body, mind, and spirit, and then justify it. Women hold all the power. Just watch the women on your Facebook. I don't care how influential their man is. It's the woman who trains the man to disrespect her. It's the woman who trains her sons and daughters to disrespect her. It's the woman who trains the world to disrespect her and use her as a fucking tool, and to use men as a tool. Remember, the women raised the boys. The men who disrespect women raising the boys were raised by women who allowed herself to be disrespected by the men in her life. Women, you need to do better. So if there's a man out there, let's say like a Charles Manson, and he's disrespecting females around him, well, who taught him how to do that? Who taught him to identify females and fucking manipulate the shit out of them? It's his mother. It's his mother who allowed men to disrespect her, and then he took cues from those men disrespecting her and thought that that basically is the way how you treat women and how you get into their head and how you control women. It was by how his mother was controlled by the men in her life, and those men in her life was taught by who? Another mother who was disrespected by the men in her life. And so when women have a bunch of boyfriends, and when women allow men to disrespect her in front of her child, when women stay in domestic violence situations, of which sometimes, yeah, they can't get out, but is that really an excuse? Then you get the law involved, but even then, can the law, it's so difficult. That's why it's so dangerous to think that your daughter is going to be safe out there being pimped out to be married to someone, to a psychopath, to someone like a Charles Manson. I mean, that's pretty extreme, but there's a lot of people out there who are pretty crazy. And you think that pimping your daughter out because she has no other future except to be pimped out to be a wife and a baby maker, you think that's going to be a safe venture for her? What kind of world are you building for her? What kind of suffering are you going to be exacting for her? Women, you need to do better. But you'll still see women right now with toddler boys catering to that. I already see it. It's Trip watching somebody on my Facebook who has a daughter, younger daughter, and a little bit of an older son, but he's still like, man, 7 years old, 6 years old. But she loves her son. She caters to her son. And she has an issue with her daughter because her daughter is just like her. Well, of course, that's like the mother's curse, having a daughter exactly like her. And so you already see what's going to come up with that. That boy is going to be so entitled. He's not going to do any wrong. The grandmother will also cater to that boy. The grandfather as well. They'll shine on the daughter because the daughter will be used as a tool of something. But it's the son that they will shower their adoration, their love, and their respect. And the daughter will be like second fiddle. But it's the son they all worship. That's how men, alpha males, get developed. Or they are mama's boys. And then when he gets with a female, that female will not have any say because it will be the grandmother that will have her hooks into everything, directing everybody. You've seen it in families. And so, so now with that said, we have a mama's boy who will just kowtow to his mother and that's it, and the female and the wife will not have any say. Or you have an alpha male that still is a mama's boy. Okay, so there's even that. Alpha males, watch out. High testosterone can cause more damage in the male, but the way he releases to temper his testosterone may also need to change. While alpha males can be extremely attractive, they are very hard to control. Okay, I mean, they may be men's men, they're great company men, and they have great male friends and all that stuff. But when you're a wife, if you're not a strong-ass wife, you will be manipulated by the alpha male. While alpha males can be very extremely attractive, they are very hard to control. Alpha males are extremely intelligent, highly manipulative, and usually get their way if a female does not know her own boundaries. And so when you're raising a girl that doesn't know her own boundaries, she will be a slave and she will be taken advantage of and used by these attractive, beautiful alpha males out there. And so when you think about the porn industry and what these women and men die from, so much damage to their reproductive parts. And they die from cervical cancer, die from ovarian cancer, die from all these different cancers because of so much trauma to their sexual parts. That's what these mothers are developing in their daughters. Future cancer, because she will not know her own boundaries, because she will not know to have her boundaries, because she will think that following what the male wants, the male teaching her how to have sex and whatever else, is the only way to keep a man. And so she will do damage to herself, allow damage to be done to her so she can keep with that specific expectation. Alpha males look for the weaknesses in women. But on the other side of it, he also gets played by the powerful women who are powerful destroyers. She will find his weakness and she will capitalize on it and destroy herself and him and her own family. And he will kowtow to her because she will use her sexual abilities to keep him in line. Alpha males have relatively hot women to keep them under the spell, and in turn, she allows him to rule everything. She has trained him to destroy her. Now look at your Facebook and all the different influencers in the health and wellness world. All these alpha males working out, lifting weights, trying to sell you their lifestyle and belief systems, and they have hot women just as a cherry on top with a few children to give them the credibility. And they have definitely a lifestyle to sell you. And yeah, they're not going to change. They're going to instill the same type of traditional misogynistic ways to their children. And so then they will develop alpha male boys who feel entitled and subservient girls who will be used as a sex plaything, and in addition to to then help the man become more influential. Because a man's more influential when he has children and a hot wife or a hot girlfriend. Most men in the US and Europe could be infertile by 2045 and 2060, according to a new study. In fact, if the data on sperm counts is extrapolated to its logical conclusion, men will have little or no reproductive capacity from 2060 onwards. The most rational explanation for the decline in male reproductive health is the changes in the environment, like I told you. Current research suggests that the male fetus is particularly susceptible to exposure to pollutants, and so change that occurs early in fetal life can have very significant effects on the adult. The results were as clear as they were surprising. And so, to talk about lesions, female mice with lesions were totally unimpaired and learned just as quickly as typical females, Grissom said. But males with a genetic lesion had a really hard time learning new responses and would want to perform old responses repeatedly, not unlike repetitive behavior seen in people on the spectrum. So you see that men, if they have a specific lesion in their genetic line, that will then keep them unevolutionary, keep them in that loop of repeating. And that's autism or spectrum disorder. And so the researchers also examined proteins in the striatum, a brain area that plays a central role in the animal's ability to learn responses to rewards. Males, but not females, with the lesion showed signs of being biochemically geared to send signals to stop a behavior more often than to start one. As expected, males with the lesion made only half the normal amount of enzyme, also a protein that acts to dampen striatal plasticity and behavioral learning. But the enzyme was in hyperactivated state that more than compensated for its low level. Females, however, made a more nearly normal amount of the enzyme and it wasn't hyperactivated. And so these findings suggest that the striatum in females can normalize itself on a biological level, even in the face of large genetic deletion, said Grissom. So if a guy is on the spectrum, he'd have to be cognitively aware to know he must release the demon so that thing isn't hyperactivated. Okay? You can't make somebody release a demon. You can't make someone think that they have a chance to become normal, right? Unless they're willing to understand they might have to go through some pain and suffering to do that. And so when someone's on the spectrum, you have to let them be on the spectrum. But with that said, on that aggressive side of not learning new responses, that's why most males out there won't take to my information, because they have some form of that. May not be as aggressive as that type of lesion, but you introduce them new information and it's totally opposite of what they were raised with and what they thought was normal. They will stop the behaviors. They will not learn the new behavior. They might do up to a certain point, but they won't go any beyond than what they usually do. If men are used to, if men, like right now in this environment, I told my husband, okay, hopefully you don't take any NyQuil or any medication if you're feeling stuff. I hope you just let it ride and go shit and let things come out and whatever. If that's, and cough, sneeze, and blow your nose, but if they don't cough and sneeze and blow their nose, really, and they're used to just shitting, and then that's the only way they're going to release, but they need to have more ways of releasing, then that's as far as they're going to go. If they already have that built in. Okay, so if you shit before, you might shit more in this environment. That's fine. But will they go to the point of blowing their nose and sneezing and coughing? No. Will they go as far as doing what I said in my book, pulling out the crap? No. They'll allow whatever behaviors to do what they do, but he will not take on a new behavior. And I mean most men out there will not take on a new behavior to save themselves. So that's why the boys have a hard time evolving and taking in new information. And that's why the boys and the men usually end up on the spectrum. Because there's something in their testosterone, there's something in their genetic line that makes it even harder for them to evolve and take on new information. Which is why there really isn't a future for males if women are not allowing them to evolve and are actively compounding their issues with supplements and antibiotics. and surgeries. So there is an actual biological reason why most men don't look at my information, why only a few men can consider the information. It's not because they're female, it's not because they're less of a man. It's because they have the ability to reason that they must evolve to survive. They can't allow certain genes to stop them from releasing. They must have the ability to deal with transcription and learn new things from a biological and socio-economical sense. Okay? And so we know that John gets it. Now we have to see if he biologically gets it. He gets it intellectually. Now we have to see if his biology will allow him to do it. He's saying that yes. Okay, so we'll see. All right? So there's another male that kind of gets this, and I don't know what's going on with him, but he doesn't say too much, and he doesn't need to. He knows what he has to deal with. I don't really know any other males out there that have really been open with me as far as how this works with them, because it's not in the male way to disclose what they're dealing with. It's mostly women that disclose what they're dealing with, the feelings of whatever. Men have to be like so strong, they can't say, oh, I'm sick. It means they're weak. All right. And so yeah. So training your boys to be alpha males, you will develop destruction in their future. But it doesn't mean to become a beta male, soy boy, mama's fucking boy, which mothers out there are developing in their sons. They're becoming mama's boys. It just means they must learn how to intellectually and intelligently evolve, assuming the mother and the father allow that to happen. All right. And so I was reading about testosterone neurotoxicity. Does testosterone have a relationship to neurological issues, to autism? And so I was Googling stuff. It says too much testosterone may cause neurotoxicity, resulting in increased risk for neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Huntington's disease. Okay. Or memory loss. And so that's why it's good to have a balance of estrogen and testosterone. But you see with Michael J. Fox, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, okay? Or of testosterone, such as that caused by the use of steroids to increase muscle mass or for replacement therapy, can lead to catastrophic loss of brain cells. So those that are trying to transition from being a woman to a man, okay, or doing the weightlifting and steroids, yeah, you're going to cause catastrophic stuff to the brain over time, if not already. Elevated testosterone kills nerve cells. And then you have the testosterone hormone deficiency. It is also linked to the development of Parkinson's disease. It is a progressive disorder of the nervous system that affects motor and movement. Early signs of this disease often go unnoticed, such as a slight hand tremors, slowed movements, and difficulty speaking and writing. And so when people are deteriorating from all the different therapies and they've had all the different cancers, well, that's kind of part of it. The losing of the mind. That's why it's so grim out there, because it's in people's futures. When they get their predisposed issues happening sooner, they're going to get it treated sooner, and the treatments are going to be so aggressive, it's going to take that person out. There's no guarantee they'll be able to go back to what they were doing before. And so when you contract a disease early on, let's say in your 30s, and then you are aggressive about it, there's no guarantee that you will be able to go back to what you were doing right afterwards, because then over time, progressively, after all the different treatments, you will lose your mind. Literally, lose your mind. Okay. Herbalists with natural and synthetic antibiotics using heavy spices and supplements will develop neurological issues in their family, if not already in their boys, as they are susceptible and they could be developing future autistic offspring or future men with neurological issues. And if that mother encourages her son to go get married and have a child, she will find a woman of her son's stature with the same belief systems, and the Pandora's box becomes opened. Now it'll be a crapshoot what that child will end up to be, or grandchild. And in this day and age, it's not promising. When you really think about it, it's the mothers who develop autism in their children in the remedies herbalist world, in the antibiotics world. I mean, every therapy out there is a factor because these therapies develop antibodies. But so do the herbalists out there, and there really is no regulation on the herbs and against disease, especially if the mother does not know what she's doing And even if she does know what she's doing, she will still blame somebody else. They always do. The system gave them the platform to blame, so they never had to take accountability for their part in the aggressive depopulation agenda. The irony is the activist women out there are against everything out there except for their own methodologies. They can't even examine their own methodologies as a major factor in why their children are ending up very weak and intolerant and why children die suddenly. Maybe it's all the ivermectin you recommended to that mother. Maybe it was the starvation diet you recommended to your friend. Maybe it was all the heavy spices you promoted as a natural remedy against evolution, the life in your body. The irony is the alternative health and wellness market have compounded the issues already developed in the allopathic world. And of course, the alternative health and wellness world don't like to feel the pain of release. And so they harbor so many demons inside, and their children are full of demons and torturous disease, which keeps getting compounded every single time the disease gets treated with something every time their child is starved out or if the necessary nutrients to give them the ability to trigger their immune system correctly. And in the meantime, their children are being eaten alive from the inside out. That's the Ouroboros. That's what the mothers are doing to their sons and daughters. They're closing up their immune system systematically, and those sons and daughters are being eaten alive by those little juvenile cells that are allowed to proliferate and not allowed to leave because of her practices in starvation and her practices in using the herbs and the extracts and the detoxes and causing more trauma because of the surgeries. At the mother's hand. And so women have been bred to be destroyers and the purveyors of life, like baby making. But there's a third fucking option for girls. But it means you'd have to basically not be part of the groupie chicks out there, the party boys and the party girls. She would not want to be a wife or a mother. She would want to be a government drone, because that's eventually where the world's going to end up. There's going to be government drones that do their job when they go home. But as soon as you fall into, oh gosh, I got to be around a bunch of chicks, and then you're all drinking and doing drugs and bemoaning that you don't have a good man, and then you're all encouraging each other to find men, find Prince Charming, and then end up that way, or you end up being somebody's wife and a slave and a baby machine for that grandmother. Because I can bet you there's going to be the alpha generation and the beta generation. So we're going to have a bunch of alpha males out there and alpha females out there in these generations. And then you have the beta boys, soy boys, the subservient boys, the mama's boys. And that's not good either. What's good, Jillian? Well, we have yet to see what males are going to end up. We already know how evolutionary women are, but how evolutionary men are, we don't know. And I'm not saying you're going to end up with a vagina. Could you end up being not very sexual? Obviously, if the sperm count's going to be 0 to none, then what will trigger sexuality? Well, that's the thing. Then you become a eunuch. What's a eunuch? A man that had his penis cut off. But not literally, but when you have an appendage that doesn't get used, will it fall off eventually? Probably. Maybe over time, if you're allowed to stay alive. If you're not, what will happen when people have children? Will they only be developing girls, not boys? And if a man's allowed to evolve, and he doesn't use his penis because he doesn't have the sexual drive to do it, and he keeps his semen inside, then would his penis fall off down the road? Maybe in the next 100 years? Anything is possible. Jesus. And so here's some interesting things to support what I'm talking about, by the herbs and the extracts and all that shit develop autism and other bullshit in men and women. In order to develop properly, the brain requires the intricate interconnection of genetic factors and pre- and postnatal environmental events. Okay? The gut-brain axis has recently raised considerable interest for its involvement in regulating the development and functioning of the brain. Consequently, alterations in the gut microbiota composition due to antibiotic administration could favor the onset of neurodevelopmental disorders. Hello, supplements and herbalists out there. You're fucking up your family and the world around you for the fucking dollar. Literature data suggests that the modulation of gut microbiota is often altered in individuals affected by neurodevelopmental disorders. It has been shown in animal studies that the metabolites released by an imbalanced gut-brain axis leads to the alteration in brain function and deficits in social behavior. Here we report the potential effects of antibiotic administration before and after birth in relation to the risk of developing a neurodevelopmental disorder. We also review the potential role of probiotics in treating gastrointestinal disorders associated with gut dysbiosis and other antibiotic administration and their possible effects in ameliorating neurodevelopmental disorder symptoms. See, you're not gonna, I don't want people who are like, oh, I'm going to give you an antibiotic and here, take a probiotic. What are you going to fucking, no. If you're going to treat your gut-brain issues with fucking probiotics as a remedy against the intentional damage by using the antibiotics and the supplements and all the herbal extracts, idiocy. Complete fucking idiocy. Using probiotics to treat antibiotic destruction is still very fucking temporary because you already have, your body was already trained and have that as a background, as a blueprint until you change the fucking blueprint. And no, it's not taking fucking probiotics. There's a lot more to getting yourself balanced than just taking something to offset what you've done. But you will see the supplement people, the herbalists that was selling you probiotics along with their antibiotics. You will see them playing both sides of the fence. And they already have food issues. They have fear of food, fear of everything. So they're going to live off all these freaking supplements and probiotics. I mean, how I sold the J World, well, yes, it is probiotic. But again, you don't want to have so much of the J juice because even though it's probiotic and salt is not poison, but you'll cure yourself into the same existence and have those little fuckers eat you out from the inside because you're trapping them inside your body. But you will see the medical system and the holistic system then sell you the opposite of what they've been doing, causing further imbalances and other issues. Because when you take a probiotic against an antibiotic, then you're causing life, which is great, but then you're going to have the release of life. You're going to have rashes. You're going to have all these different things come up like I have, like hives and whatever else. And then you're going to want to treat all that shit. That's how the holistic world is going to fuck up their family and fuck up the world around them. Something like Y-linked chromosomes, they pass down conditions like from the father, right? So, and so before that, the keywords around the deadliness of antibiotics and what they're associated with, the keywords are autism, spectrum disorders, brain development issue, dysbiosis, environmental factors, gastrointestinal issues, mental disorders, microbiota, neuroactive molecules, psychobiotic. And then I said a condition is considered Y-linked if the altered gene that causes the disorder is located in the Y chromosome with the male, one of the two sex chromosomes in each of the male cells, because only males have a Y chromosome. In Y-linked inheritance, a variant can only be passed down from father to son. And you can Google what those disorders are. I didn't go into that detail. But inheritance, ASD is, what are the different ways a genetic condition can be inherited? Inheritance, ASD has a tendency, or autism spectrum disorder, has a tendency to run in families, but the inheritance pattern is usually unknown. People with gene changes associated with ASD generally inherit an increased risk of developing the condition rather than the condition itself. Yeah, well, all that fucking antibiotics that you're selling your friends. So then, the people on my Facebook, and people I've known, they've gotten vasectomies and stuff. And I wanted to see what happens in the future when you get a vasectomy. Okay, and I know people that have vasectomies that also took on some kind of multiple sclerosis or other neurodegenerative diseases. So vasectomy leads to future dementia and, of course, no evolution, which is right on point why mostly it's women who consider my information and men just dabble with it. There are rare occurrences which a man will actually introduce and understand my information. Right now, there are 2 men in the J world out of 300 million in the United States who might actually understand where I'm coming from. Maybe they have less damage to their body, mind, and spirit as far as the medical holistic system. When you have less damage, it's not as painful to evolve. Because when you cognitively understand, you'll have a better chance translating your intellectual ability to your body, mind, and your spirit. Okay? And so if you understand that, and if you already dealt with pain in other ways, and you understand where I'm coming from, and you also know you have to feed the pain, then a man who's been trained to deal with pain externally, maybe even internally, could potentially take on my information and deal with the pain, and he has the latitude to do that. There's nobody around him stopping him from evolving and releasing. And many wives are jealous of other women who and will not allow their man to listen to my information. She has to be the god to her husband, her children, everyone in her world. She's the queen bee. If she perceives anyone to destroy her family, her unit, she must be the one to do it, not anyone else. She must be the one to introduce change. She does not allow outsiders to come in at all. And I don't blame her, because I don't want someone coming in and tell my husband, here, take this, take that, do this, do that. No, I'll chase your ass out. So I understand. Believe me, I do. I just hope she is intellectually intelligent enough to save herself, and that in turn potentially even give her family half a chance. But if her husband is very influential, she's second fiddle. She won't introduce any kind of change because her husband rules the roost, and she allows him to. When women don't take a stand for their own identity, they will allow their husbands and man to destroy her, and he will allow herself to destroy herself and the rest of the family, systematically through FDA-approved protocols. So why are men having to disfigure themselves? Because they have urgent sexual needs, and their wives have urgent sexual needs. And when you have urgent sexual needs, you will disfigure yourself to stop pregnancy. Researchers report an association between vasectomy and primary progressive aphasia, PPA, a rare variety of frontotemporal dementia. In 2006 manuscript in Cognitive Behavioral Neurology detailing a case control study that compared 47 men with the disease to 57 controls, the rate of vasectomy in PPA patients were 40% versus 16% in normal controls. This difference met statistical significance. The study also found that there was a younger age of PPA onset for patients who have had undergone vasectomy, 58 versus 62 years. Inspired by one patient's perception of his PPA disease process, these researchers tested a hypothesis of an association between vasectomy and PPA. However, despite proper methodology of case control design, sound statistical analysis, and self-acknowledgement of several of the study weaknesses, whether the relationship is that they reported the case. Okay. A causal link between vasectomy and PPA would have important ramifications for public health and informed consent of vasectomy patients. Our own patients continue to raise concerns over this reported association during vasectomy consultation. We thus seek to carefully evaluate the publication reporting this association between vasectomy and PPA, as well as a larger body of medical literature. See, no matter how you want to fucking spin it, doing any kind of damage to your reproductive system, doing trauma to your body, mind, and spirit will affect your gut and your brain. Obviously, taking antibiotics, natural or synthetic, in your gut will affect your fucking brain. So all of that should tell you anything that does to violate the life in your body, attack it, is going to affect your fucking brain. Okay? And so women are right now teaching their sons and daughters how to disrespect the life in their body, and they're developing a path to freaking neurological issues, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. That's what these women are doing to their sons and daughters and their husbands and wives. And that's why men are being phased out in the future. Because they are phasing themselves out, and they choose not to evolve. And their wives and daughters support non-evolution in their parents and husbands and brothers. And in turn, the female will have a better chance surviving, and the males will die off or become vegetables with major neurological conditions. The indicators are there. It's happening. It's been happening. I've met people out there in the world just by happenstance, and their son is on the spectrum. Your son has something going on. They almost look like that guy from the Trailer Park Boys, one of the men that are in there. It's a trip how prevalent neurodegenerative diseases are in males. And so, all right, so we're good. We're doing good timing. 9:16 a.m. All right. let me see something real quick. Oh, shit. Okay. My order has substitutions. Okay. All right. So the hybridization of diversified phenotypical characteristics come from the diversity in the population. So why do we get such burly males? Why do we get such burly type of, or really deficient type of males and females? The hybridization of diversified phenotypical characteristics come from the diversity in the population. Nature and nurture develop all types of phenotypical characteristics. How do we get big burly men? We also know geological location and survival mechanisms develop a certain characteristics that are distributed into the population. And then fertility treatments and lab experiments develop the perfect male relative to the intention. On the other hand, you get the perfect female. She has specific characteristics that are extremely attractive to the sexual population. And so those characteristics are bred into the population for a very specific reason. And then all of the social conditioning in the movies by the mothers and the fathers. And so these girls then, if they have the body type, they will turn into the sex bomb and then be used for that predominantly. And that's why there's so many hot women out there. That's why men don't even have to get married nowadays. They can just stay single and screw everything until they die. But there's something to be said for a mature relationship, which is also being phased out. The men and women in our society are degrading neurologically. And so holding on to mature relationships are very difficult, if at all possible. Many people stay together because they have kids until they can't anymore. Once the kids are gone, and they even survive raising the kids together, people split up because the kids sort of kept them together. As far as the slave trade, the white and black slave trade, and the World War II, the Nazis, human experiments, all the different slave trades gave the powers to be a plethora of DNA to use and work from. And of course, your 23andMe, whatever you send into, those companies. Once you can acknowledge you can have that you've been part of a vast experiment, your lifestyle and your belief system, everything you come to know are in question. So maybe it's time to question your lifestyle, your belief systems, everything you came to know. Maybe you can reprogram yourself with whatever gifts that were given to you, what you choose to take on through your mind and in your environment, if you have the ability, that genetic ability to evolve. And they're saying most men have genetic ability, most men have the genetic inability to evolve for many different reasons, nature and nurture. But I will say if there are some men in the population who can evolve, potentially even consider my information, without wholly rejecting it, men might have a chance to evolve, assuming they get away from the deadly destroyers in their world, their moms or wives and their husbands or whatever. But again, it's who the men respect the most and who the men listen to the most will determine their survivability. And it's not always the wife. It could be the women in the system. It could be their mother who collectively promote a belief system. In many cases, wives have no voice in their man's world. It could be other men's wives who believe in the collective belief system their man follows. Who the man listens to will determine his survivability, if he can get out of his own way. Quite interesting, the dynamics out there. All right, Dr. Fauci. Okay. All right, I'm almost done here. All right, so that's the thing, is that, they have bred different types of males and females. It's all out there in the population. Now it's time for the man to finally sort of figure out how to save himself. But again, I'm a woman. I introduce change. Either he'll sort of listen to me, maybe, or he'll listen to his wife and his mother and his girlfriend, and you know where that's going to end up. But listening to you, at least he gets half a chance listening to me. But if he doesn't even take my advice or even contemplate or consider what I'm saying, he has no fucking chance to save himself. He'll end up a vegetable. He'll end up a vegetable. Because that's the only other fucking choice you have. At least I give people half a fucking chance to survive their predisposed issues and survive climate change. But you go in the medical holistic system and everyone's in it, you don't have a fucking chance to survive. So Dr. Fauci meme. Okay. So somebody was saying that Dr. Fauci developed something from the Spanish flu. They were using the mask for the Spanish flu, and then it ended up, when they wore the mask, it ended up to become some kind of pneumonia, bacterial infection. Okay, yeah, shit fucking mutates. Whether you can blame the mask or blame the V's or blame somebody else over there who you took on microbes because you were exposed to their sickness, you're going to develop all these different offshoots of the different diseases. That's why there's influenza 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's why there's certain types of pneumonias. That's why there's so many different types of COVID, okay? And so here's the thing. When you develop therapies to destroy microbes, especially in the immunology department, That department is a reflection of the population who wants to destroy microbes by any means necessary. Using microbes to destroy microbes is like pitting one gang against the other, mutually assured destruction. But that's not any different than what the herbalists do out there, pitting microbes against microbes. If there weren't any herbalists out there trying to quell disease and destroy life, you wouldn't have immunologists to develop Pac-Man or asteroid or centipede type video game methodology of destroying a person's ability to evolve. No different than laser weapons in the doctor's office or the military. So you're all against the DEWs out there in Hawaii, but you're getting laser surgery. How is that any fucking different? You ask for this type of therapy in a lab or in a garden. When people stop destroying life and they gently and even emphatically release life out of their body, they have a chance to mature their parent cells, not keep developing juvenile cells who are chaotic and extremely aggressive. Just like the children who have no parental regulation, like Lord of the Flies. Children raising children. And I say click on the picture. Dr. Fauci is not the problem. Bill Gates was never the problem. Both men were used as a tool, as a scapegoat, because mothers out there could not take personal responsibility for their destruction of their own children. When you're giving children elderberry syrup, and I see it on my Facebook, people are giving, they're fermenting honey. Honey is fucking antibiotic, and they're putting berries in that, and they're giving it to their children, and they're selling it to their friends. They're on my Facebook. They are the death angels, but you couldn't tell them that. Both men were used as a tool, as a scapegoat, Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates, because mothers out there could not take personal responsibility for their destruction of their own children. When you're giving children elderberry syrup, you might as well give a nod to the immunology department, developing synthetic protection. Wearing a mask is not an issue unless you already have the problem with release. But then taking on all the therapies, you still have a problem with release, or you wouldn't be using any therapy, if at all, if you understand how to release literally organically. It's in my book. Blaming a mask or a therapy for your inability to release and evolve is no different than than a person blaming a spoon for their obesity. It's not the spoon's fault. It's not even the food's fault. It's a person's lack of evolution and release process fault. Traditionalists will be the death of their culture, even if it's just themselves. And those who are selling elderberry syrup, traditionalists, and they're destroying their family. That's the common theme in all cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders. That person has been conditioned to weaken their immune system from working the way it's supposed to, because they are part of the collective lab experiment, even in the holistic world. That's why children will have an issue with surviving in the new world, because their parents are collectively weakening their own children's immune system. I think kids are great, but they're also in for some fucking suffering. As the climate keeps becoming more aggressive, their immune system will force itself to work, and when their immune system finally works the way it's supposed to, not only is it painful, but many people don't survive their own immune system trying to work the way it's supposed to after so many years of their immune system being atrophied by the medical holistic system. It has been a collective effort to take down humans. It's been a collective effort to take down humans to their knees, begging for their life back. As much as I like children, I like hanging out with them, I know what they're in for, and that's hard to watch. Just like you guys watching me deal with my animal when I was trying to save her by not treating her, which could have caused her more suffering. When you watch me with my animal, it's like me watching you with your children. That's why it's like to watch deficient things trying to survive. It's fucking hell. That's why moms must try to discourage their children from having children. It's already hell for the parents because of predisposed issues passed down. Imagine what it's like for their grandchildren trying to survive an aggressive environment with deficiencies. Now watch your Facebook. Suffering, astronomical suffering hidden by fake smiles and toxic positivity. And here, I'll be the snake oil salesman and sell you an elderberry syrup or a concoction. I'm not even selling the J juice, guys. I'm selling you that you have to feel the pain, pull out the fucking shit, eat all the food, and find a way to get over your food allergies, or you're going to be starving, deficient in bone, in body, in mind, and in spirit. And it's already happening. And so now we're like, oh shit. Now with all these direct energy weapons, and everyone's like, okay, why did not all the blue houses over there in Hawaii get burned up? Okay, where blue? And I said, constructive interference happens when two wavelengths overlap in such a way that they combine to create a larger wave. Destructive interference happens when two waves overlap in such a way that they cancel each other out. And so blue is a very high energy. Okay, when there is a fire and there's a blue flame, that's a very hot flame. And so if you have blue, if your house is blue, then it cancels out the direct energy weapons that maybe have that blue wavelength. It makes sense. So I guess we're blue, I guess. And so then with all the fires, Okay, I wouldn't volunteer to go fight the fires out there. No. People volunteer this shit because they're trying to do good and they're green machine people, or they were conscripted from whatever they were doing, or they were getting paid for it. International deployment to fight the fire wars over there in Canada. Canada's burning up. It's fucking crazy what Canada is going on in Canada. People are flown in from all over the world to fight these fires. Can you imagine the suffering from breathing in all the smoke and potentially even dying? Because they said a 19-year-old in that one YouTube video died from a falling tree. 19 years old and conscripted to go fight fires. I mean, I understand them using prisoners, because that's cheap labor. But I like having prisoners take on all the animals that are thrown away by society. That's what I like about the prison system, is if they can take on the animals, then the animals and the prisoners have somebody to hang out with and potentially bring out the softness in the prisoners. I think that's fucking awesome. That's where all the shelters should go to. The animal shelters, they should go to the prison system. Okay? So, anyways. All right. So, that's all I'm going to say right now, because I got shit coming to my house right now. So I will talk to you guys later, but really what it comes down to, women will make or break her family. And she will make or break her sons, and she will make or break her daughters. And if you want your sons to survive, mothers are going to have to change the way they do stuff. But when it comes to money and social capital, most mothers won't change. And so we get to watch between now and 2050, the suffering of the ramifications of your choices to take money and social capital over the sanctity of your family and yourself. And if you don't intend to live, and you have no intention of living beyond whatever you think is set out for you, then thank you for your service. Thank you for taking yourself out. Thank you for taking your children and your family out of the mix so we don't have to compete for food with them. Thank you for your service. Bye.